Welcome to the Science of Hockey, the podcast where we break down the science behind ice hockey. I'm the analyst, your host, and every week we explore the data, research, and evidence that shape how we play, train, and understand the game of hockey. From biomechanics to performance psychology, we take you beyond the rink and into the research lab, giving you insights that go beyond hearsay and into what really makes the difference on the ice. Whether you're a player, a coach, a parent, or just someone passionate about the sport, we're here to bring you scientifically backed information in a language that's friendly and easy to understand. So grab your skates and let's dive into the science of hockey. Welcome back to the Science of Hockey. I'm your host, the analyst, and today we're putting hockey performance to the test, literally. This episode reveals how off-ice fitness tests, on-ice skating drills, and advanced analytics can predict real game success. From sprints and jumps to game-time stats like expected goals and block shots, we'll unpack how coaches and trainers can optimize training for both forwards and defensemen. If you're a player looking for a performance edge or a coach eager to bring data-driven insights to your team, this episode is your playbook for success. Lace up your skates, and let's break down the game.
All right, so today we're going to be looking at some research on what it takes to make it in junior hockey.
Okay.
We're talking about the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League.
Oh, wow. The QMJHL.
Yeah, the league that sends more players to the NHL than any other junior league in the world.
That's a big one.
Huge.
Yeah.
And this research is all about what separates the stars from the rest.
Cool.
Now, before we get too far, I should say that you don't have to be an aspiring pro to get something out of this.
Right.
Like what we're going to talk about today applies to any hockey player at any level who wants to improve their game.
Okay, so what's the deep dive today?
So we're looking at this study that followed a bunch of elite junior players in the QMJHL, and they put them through all sorts of tests to see what qualities actually translate to success on the ice.
So it's like Moneyball, but for hockey.
Kinda, yeah, but they're not just looking at stats.
Right.
They did physical tests like you'd expect, but they also took it a step further and did a bunch of on-ice tests, too.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about how much you can bench press or how fast you can run.
Exactly. Like being able to skate fast in a straight line doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a great hockey player.
Makes sense.
Right. So they wanted to see how those physical abilities actually play out in game situations.
Okay, so what kind of on-ice tests are we talking about here?
Well, one that really stood out to me was the multi-stage aerobic skating test, or SNAT for short.
Multi-stage aerobic skating test. I don't even know what that means.
I know it sounds kind of intimidating, right?
It does.
But it's actually pretty simple.
Okay.
Basically, it's like a VO2 max test, but on skates.
Okay.
So it measures how efficiently your body uses oxygen while you're skating.
Oh, so it's like a measure of your endurance on the ice?
Exactly.
Right.
Like
Okay.
how long you can maintain that high-intensity effort without gassing out.
Yeah, which in hockey is huge because you're constantly stopping and starting and skating all out.
Right? Like you need to be able to make those quick bursts of speed, but you also need to be able to recover quickly and be ready for the next shift.
Totally.
So having a strong aerobic base is super important for any hockey player, no matter what position you play.
Right, that makes sense.
Okay, so another set of tests that caught my eye were the forward and backward sprint tests.
Okay, so just straight up speed tests.
Well, not exactly. They weren't just looking at pop speed.
Okay.
They were more focused on acceleration.
Acceleration.
Yeah, specifically how quickly a player can cover that first 7.65 meters.
And why is that so important?
Well, in hockey, it's often that initial burst, that first step that makes all the difference.
Oh, I see.
Like think about winning a race to a loose puck or beating a defender to the net or even just avoiding a check.
Right, it's all about that quickness off the mark.
Exactly. And these tests help pinpoint the physical qualities that drive those critical moments.
Interesting.
Okay, now for something that really surprised me, of all the off-ice tests, the one that consistently showed a link to on-ice speed was the broad jump.
The broad jump. How does that even...
I know, right? It seems kind of random.
It does.
But when you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Okay, I'm listening.
So the broad jump isn't just about how far you can jump. It's about explosiveness.
Oh.
It's about the power you can generate from your muscles, and that translates directly to your first few strides on the ice.
So it's not about being a long jumper. It's about that initial burst of power.
Precisely.
Right.
Like think about exploding out of the corners or winning those battles along the boards or just being a more dynamic skater overall.
Right. You need that power to really drive your strides.
Exactly. And the broad jump is a great way to measure that explosiveness.
I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that seems kind of basic, but it's actually a really good indicator of athleticism.
Okay, well, I'm definitely going to be adding some broad jumps to my workout routine now.
Me too. All right, so another finding that really caught my attention was the link between the vertical jump and body checking.
Wait, the vertical jump and body checking.
Yeah.
How are those two things connected?
I know it seems kind of strange at first, but when you break it down, it makes sense.
Okay.
So to deliver a solid body check, you need that lower body power, that same kind of explosive force you use in a vertical jump.
Oh, I see.
So a higher vertical jump generally means a more powerful check.
Gotcha. But of course, technique and timing are also important.
Absolutely. It's not just about brute force.
Right.
You need to be smart about it.
And even if you're not a player who delivers a lot of checks, that same lower body power comes into play in puck battles. Shielding the puck, maintaining your balance.
Exactly. It's a fundamental athletic quality that's important for any hockey player.
Okay, so we've got aerobic fitness acceleration, explosive power, and all of these things translate to success on the ice.
Right. And here's another thing they found that I thought was really interesting.
Okay, what's that GAT?
It turns out that faster skaters were actually more likely to get hit by their opponents.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah, it seems kind of counterintuitive, right?
It does.
But if you think about it, it makes sense.
Okay, I'm listening.
So faster players are generally more involved in the play.
Right.
They're carrying the puck more, making more dynamic moves, and drawing more attention from the other team.
So they become a target.
Exactly. It's almost like a double-edged sword. The more you use your speed, the more you risk getting hit.
But that doesn't mean speed is a bad thing.
No, of course not.
Okay.
It just means that you need to develop other skills to complement that speed.
Like what?
Like puck protection, evasive maneuvers, and just being aware of your surroundings.
Right. You need to be able to use your speed effectively and safely.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is all really interesting, but before we wrap up, I'm curious about one thing.
What's that?
Did the researchers find any differences between forwards and defensemen?
Oh, that's a great question. And actually, yeah, they did find some interesting differences.
Oh.
Yeah, so it seems like some of these links between tests and performance actually vary depending on a player's position.
Interesting, like what, for example?
You'll have to wait for part 2 to find out.
All right, I'm hooked. Leave me on.
Stay tuned.
You left us hanging last time about those differences between forwards and D-men.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Spill the beans.
Okay, so we were talking about backward skating speed and how it's linked to a player's offensive output.
Right, and you said that connection was even stronger for defensemen.
Yeah, so like if you've got a D-man who can really fly backwards, they're not just good at protecting their own end.
Right.
They can actually be a real threat on offense.
So it's like they're a fourth forward almost.
Yeah, kinda.
Interesting.
I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
If you've got a defenseman who can quickly transition the puck out of the defensive zone and join the rush or even create scoring chances themselves,
that's huge.
it totally changes the dynamic of the game.
It does.
And this research really challenges that old school view of defensemen as strictly defensive players.
Right, like stay-at-home defensemen.
Well, they're just supposed to clear the puck and stay on their own end.
Exactly.
But this study suggests that backward skating speed is actually a key offensive skill for defensemen.
Especially in today's game, where puck-moving defensemen are so valuable.
Totally. Like, they can be real quarterbacks back there.
Yeah, orchestrating the play from the back end.
And it all starts with that ability to skate backwards with speed and control.
Okay, so how can players use this information to their advantage?
Well, I think it's important for all players to understand the importance of backward skating.
Right.
Like, it's not just a defensive skill anymore.
It's a weapon.
Exactly.
Okay, what else?
Well, another thing we talked about last time was the multi-stage aerobic skating test.
Oh, yeah, the
one that measures endurance on the ice.
Right.
Well, the researchers also found a link between performance on that test and a player's offensive output.
Really? So the better your endurance, the more likely you are to score goals?
Well, not exactly. It wasn't just about goals.
Right.
They were looking at something called expected goals.
Expected goals. Now, I've heard that term thrown around, but I'm not entirely sure what it means.
Yeah, it's kind of a fancy stat.
Okay.
But basically, it measures the quality of scoring chances.
So it's not just about how many shots you take, but about where those shots are coming from.
Exactly. Like, a shot from the slot with a clear view of the net is going to have a much higher expected goal value than a weak wrist shot from the blue line.
Makes sense.
So what the researchers found was that players who performed well on the SMAT,
Meaning they had good endurance?
yeah,
Okay.
those players were more likely to generate high-quality scoring chances.
Interesting. But why would that be?
It's not entirely clear, but we can speculate.
Okay, let's hear it.
So maybe it's about having that extra burst of energy in the offensive zone, so you can outmaneuver defenders and get to those prime scoring areas.
Okay, so you're not as tired when you're in a position to score.
Right. Or maybe it's about being able to sustain that high-intensity effort over multiple shifts.
Which gives you more opportunities to make plays that lead to scoring chances.
Exactly. Like the more energy you have, the more involved you can be in the play, and the more likely you are to be in the right place at the right time.
That makes sense.
Either way, it seems like aerobic fitness is a key factor in offensive production.
Okay, so if you want to score more goals, work on your endurance.
It definitely can't hurt.
So we've talked about backward skating speed and aerobic fitness, both of which seem to be linked to offense.
Right.
Is there anything else that stood out to you from this research?
Well, actually, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on.
Okay.
Remember how we were talking about how faster skaters are more likely to get hit?
Yeah, the whole risk-reward thing.
Right. Well, the researchers dug a little deeper into that, and they found that players who had a really explosive first step, they were even more likely to get hit.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about overall speed, it's about that initial burst.
Exactly.
So how do those players stay healthy?
Well, that's a great question.
Right, because if you're getting hit all the time, that can't be good for you,
Yeah, it's definitely a concern.
especially in a physical sport like hockey.
Well, remember those tests we talked about earlier?
Which ones?
The broad jump and the vertical jump?
Oh, yeah, the ones that measure explosive power.
Right. Well, it turns out that the vertical jump...
Which measures lower body power.
Yeah, that one was actually linked to both giving and receiving body checks.
Interesting.
So the researchers think that players with greater lower body power might be better equipped to both deliver and absorb those hits.
So it's like they have a stronger foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Like they can withstand those collisions better.
So it's not just about being big and strong.
Yeah.
It's about having that explosive power in your legs.
Right, and I think that's a really important takeaway for any hockey player.
Okay, so what else can we learn from all of this?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to training.
Right, like what works for one player might not work for another.
Exactly, and we need to start thinking about training in a more holistic way.
Meaning?
Meaning we need to consider all aspects of a player's development.
Okay.
Their physical abilities, their technical skills, their mental toughness,
Right.
their understanding of the game.
So it's about the whole package.
Exactly.
All right, I like it.
Yeah, it's not just about being strong or fast or skilled. It's about being a complete hockey player.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
Well, I think this research provides a really valuable starting point. It gives us some insights into the qualities that are important for success on the ice.
Right.
But now it's up to coaches and players to take this information and use it to develop training programs that are tailored to the individual.
Okay, so it's about using this research to guide our training, but not letting it dictate everything we do.
Exactly. It's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And ultimately, the most important thing is to develop a love for the game.
Because if you don't love it, you're not going to put in the work.
And you're not going to reach your full potential.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway from all of this.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From backward skating to aerobic fitness to explosive power.
And everything in between.
So any final thoughts before we wrap up this deep dive?
Well, I think it's clear that there's a lot more to hockey performance than meets the eye.
For sure.
And I think this research has really opened my eyes to the importance of a holistic approach to training.
Yeah, it's not just about one thing.
Exactly. It's about the whole package.
And I think that's a really important message for any athlete.
Totally. Like no matter what sport you play,
Yeah.
if you want to reach your full potential, you need to develop all aspects of your game.
All right, so before we go,
Yeah.
any parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
Just keep working hard, keep learning, and most importantly, never lose that love for the game.
All right, so we've been digging into this research on elite junior hockey players. And it's clear that there's a lot more to performance than we might think.
It's like peeling back the layers of the onion.
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about explosive power, aerobic fitness, and even the risk-reward dynamic of speed.
Right, and all those things are important for any hockey player.
But you mentioned earlier that some of these findings become even more interesting when we start looking at specific positions.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, remember that correlation we discussed between backward skating speed and a player's expected goals.
Oh, yeah. It seemed like it applied to both forwards and defensemen.
Right, but that connection was even stronger for defensemen.
So a defenseman who can really fly backwards isn't just good at defending their own zone.
Yeah.
They can actually be a real offensive threat.
Precisely. It's like having a fourth forward out there.
I can see how that would make a huge difference in transitioning the puck up the ice, joining the rush, creating scoring chances.
Exactly. It completely changes the dynamic of the game.
And it really challenges that traditional view of defensemen as strictly stay-at-home players.
Right, like their only job is to clear the puck and prevent goals.
Yeah. But the study suggests that a defenseman with elite backwards skating speed can be a true playmaker capable of dictating the pace of the game and contributing offensively. It's like we're rewriting the playbook on what it means to be a successful defenseman in today's game.
And that's what's so exciting about this research.
Yeah, it's giving us new insights into the skills and attributes that really matter.
But the key is, how do we apply this knowledge?
Right, like how can players, coaches, and even fans use this information to improve their understanding of the game?
Well, first and foremost, I think this research highlights the importance of a holistic approach to training.
Okay, so what does that mean exactly?
It means that we need to think about all the different pieces of the puzzle.
Like strength, speed, skill, endurance.
Exactly. All of those things contribute to a well-rounded player.
It's about recognizing that hockey is a multifaceted sport, and success depends on a complex interplay of physical and mental attributes.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Now, another important takeaway is the need to tailor training to a player's specific position.
Right. We've seen how certain skills and attributes have a greater impact depending on whether you're a forward, a defenseman, or a goalie.
So a cookie-cutter approach just won't cut it.
Nope. You need to consider the specific demands of each role on the ice.
Okay, so we've got a holistic approach to training and position-specific training. Anything else?
Yeah. One more thing.
Okay, I'm listening.
Remember that while testing can provide valuable insights, it's only one piece of the puzzle.
Right. Don't get so caught up in the numbers that you lose sight of the bigger picture.
Exactly. Hard work, dedication, and a love for the game are still the most important ingredients for success.
So let's wrap this up.
Okay, sounds good.
Any final thoughts for our listeners out there?
Well, whether you're stepping onto the ice for the first time or you're a seasoned veteran, remember to train smart, focus on your strengths, and never stop learning.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll see your name among the elite players being studied by researchers.
Haha. That's the dream.
All right, that's all the time we have for today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep your stick on the ice.
Thanks for tuning in to the Science of Hockey. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share it with your friends, teammates, or anyone who loves hockey as much as you do. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment to let us know what you liked, what you'd like to hear next, or any questions you have. Your feedback helps us make the show even better. Until next time, keep your skates sharp, your mind open, and keep chasing the science behind the game.